Hello everybody, welcome to this edition of the Coaching Conversation. In this series, we're looking to help business owners, business leaders see how coaching can help them and their teams be the people they want to be, achieve the things they really want to achieve in their life. We also aim it at fellow coaches. What we're really looking to do is to show them our experiences and hope that that inspires them and helps them develop their own skills and practices. I'm Graham Wiley. I've been coaching business leaders and business owners around the world for the last 2 decades. Nothing more to say now other than get ready, get comfortable. Here comes this edition of the Coaching Conversation. Hello everybody and welcome to this edition of the Coaching Conversation. And I'm pleased and excited to say that today I'm being joined by Chad Brown, all the way from Provo in Utah, USA. Chad is a fellow coach. He has a very interesting angle he takes on these sorts of things. He describes himself as not a typical leadership guru, and he helps his clients, who are typically business owners, business founders, CEOs, with non-BS leadership principles. So, a lot to go out there. First of all, please introduce yourself to our audience.
Graham, thank you so much for having me. We made it happen. There was a few hiccups and I made a mistake, but I'm so grateful to be here. Already, you're such a gracious host. So thank you for that. Like you said, my name's Chad. I've been working with leaders and executives, hard driving folks for about 8 years now. That stemmed from my own experience of failing at pretty much every aspect of leadership in my own business as I built a media production company. Luckily, I found somebody who was also a coach themselves, came in and changed my life. And I thought it was going to be a business adventure. I thought that was what was going to be our focus. And ultimately, it was a life adventure. And so I'm internally grateful for that person. His name is Adrian. I now work with him day to day in our firm, Take New Ground. But so grateful. I say he saved my life. And I say that for multiple reasons in multiple aspects of my life. So I'm a husband. I've been married 20 years next year to my beautiful wife, Katie. We have 3 kids. And the ages are 10, 14, and 17, girl, boy. We live in Utah, as you mentioned. We love the outdoors. We're biking, hiking, rafting, whatever we can do to get outside. That's what we're up to when I'm not on Zoom, living my life on Zoom with clients. I'm sure you know the role. And that's me. Now I get to do what I absolutely love and have a heart for every single day. It's not easy, but it's worth it, and it's exciting. So I'm happy to jump in with you today on some of the ways that I work with executive leaders.
I'd really like to start by exploring what you mean by no BS leadership principles. What's at the heart of that?
So when I talk about no BS leadership principles, what I'm talking about is our way of being. And this, I'll come back to this probably multiple times within our conversation. But most people want mechanisms. Tell me what to do, and so many coaches, and there's a place for this. There's a place for mechanism of knowing how to do this thing, or how do I find the right people for my team? How do I get them to work in a way that is efficient and productive? And how do I create a culture? All of that's fine. There's a place for that. I'm mostly interested in what's going on for the leader internally. What is their way of being? How do they approach it? What is their perception on people, their business, the world? All of that kind of stuff. And so my questioning tends to, and I call it my questioning or my inquiry with executive leaders, tends to poke at what's not being talked about. And I know that that's where the gold is if we can get to what nobody's talking about, especially themselves, then we're striking gold, because that's where change, that's where opportunity and possibility lives, I believe. So when I say no BS, I just mean the BS can sometimes look like some of these surface things of like, how do I do this? And ultimately, if we can get into, I believe if we can get in touch and clear and connected to who we are and our way of being and the way we're relating to the world, then the doing just comes. There's a million ways to skin a cat, as the saying goes. And I'm saying you'll figure those out once you're clear on what's going on for you. And that's where the real stuff is.
It's really interesting that, because as you were explaining it, I was beginning to understand and relate to what you're trying to say. And there's no doubt that when you first start, particularly with a new client, that problems are all tangible problems. I can't get this done. I don't know how to do that. I've got a problem with this relationship, and they set very obvious desires and intentions around all of that. And as a coach, you're quite right. You do inquire in such a way as you peel back the layers until you get to the root cause or causes.
Yeah.
One of the classic ones is imposter syndrome. Why do you feel that you're not good enough? What makes you believe that? And you can keep pulling away at it until you've actually exposed it. And it's a lovely foundation point from building everything else on. So I can completely agree with you. I understand where that comes from now that you've explained it. Which moves into the next unorthodox piece, and certainly the title of this week's edition of the Coaching Conversation is Never Set Goals. Well, clearly, that's a strange concept for an executive coach, because by and large, the objective of the coach is to help your coachee client achieve some things that they've decided they want to do. So go on. Explain to me now what never set goals means for you.
It is an interesting, and I always admit at the top of this conversation, it's somewhat of a clickbaity title. Now, I do think the way that I interact with the idea is unconventional, and I believe that it has more efficacy than the traditional idea of setting goals. So when we think about setting goals, so many people think about, well, I mean, a really popular area of setting goals is New Year's resolutions, right?
Yeah.
Well, Graham, what do we know about the efficacy of New Year's resolutions?
They don't get much past the 3rd of January.
That's exactly right. In fact, it's about 21 to 22 days on average when they've done studies or they've followed people on their goals that those goals are met. So that means there's a large group, a large subset of those people are doing it less than 21 days, and another subset are doing it just over 21 days. So I ask the question, why do it's like insanity, right? The definition of insanity is to continue to do the same thing over and over again, expecting different results.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering, why are we still setting goals the same way that we've always been setting goals when we know that it doesn't work? So I started thinking about this for myself. So one of the places that this is most transparent for me is in physical fitness. I just think it's a very simplistic and relatable area of life that we can chat about to really illustrate this principle. So what I think about is all of the times in my life when I've gone up and down in weight, when I've gone to the gym and quit, when I've, decided that I was going to get fit for this race or get fit for this certain activity that I wanted to do, something like that. And then I would set a goal. Well, what happens in our psychology when we set a goal is a couple of things. The reason that they don't work out. One is maybe we reach the goal, and after reaching the goal, our mind shuts off. Meaning, either we've got to set another goal that feels exponentially bigger than the one that we just met, or we're so burnt out and we're so sick of doing the thing that we want to do, and we've reached the finish line that our brain says, okay, I'm done. And what happens? We go back to the place that we were. Meaning, or for me in this specific example, putting on the weight, not going to the gym, feeling weak, not able to do the activities with my family that I want to do. So that's one of the scenarios. Another scenario is that we feel like we're not making progress fast enough towards the goal. So then what do? We don't see possibility in reaching the goal. So we quit. We stop doing the thing. Oh, well, that wasn't working. It must be something else. The other thing is that we think that reaching another way that we relate to these, that I think, is that we think reaching the goal is going to give us that fulfillment that we're looking for. Like when we reach it, I'm going to be so happy and so proud and so fulfilled. And then it happens. And maybe we experience that for a day, an hour, something like that. But then we're sorely disappointed in all of the hype around this thing. Then what do? We don't go after anything else, or we quit. We go back to where we were. So there's a fundamental problem, I believe, with the general way that we relate to goals. So I started thinking for myself, well, what else could it be if it's not goal setting and goal achievement that actually creates fulfillment and lasting? And that's the caveat, or that's the qualifier that I want to be very clear about. Lasting results, not one-time results, not, any of that sort of stuff. I think for myself, and I can speak for most of my clients and the people that I'm involved with, they want lasting results. So what is it? Well, it's discipline. I believe it's discipline. It's not goal setting. It's discipline that's going to make the biggest difference over an extended period of time to create the results that we want. But most of us, especially in goal setting, we don't focus on the discipline as longevity. Meaning, I only have to do this to get this. And then as soon as I get this, I don't have to do this any longer. So for me, the mantra came to my mind. It was funny. It was one morning I had set, I would decided that I was going to wake up at 5:30 in the morning to get to the gym, get my day started, get all that stuff done before the kids start getting up and the chaos of the house happens, and all of that sort of stuff. And I didn't get out of bed. I didn't keep my agreement with myself. I didn't keep my commitment with myself. I didn't get out of bed. And this got me thinking. It's like, well, this isn't working. What's going on? And the mantra came to my mind. Chad, you are the guy that works out 5 times a week, no matter what, for the rest of your life. And I thought, wow. Like, it surprised me. It kind of, it took me back a little bit. Chad, you are the guy that works out 5 times a week, no matter what, for the rest of your life. It scared me a little bit, but also it was incredibly empowering. It was like, yeah, I'm the guy. Actually, I'm the guy that does that. And what happened is that it took it from a goal outside of myself, or something that I wanted to prove to the world or prove to myself. It took it from that to a minute or an incremental discipline. Every single day, I can measure it. I can measure it every week. I can know immediately whether or not I'm being the guy I said I'm committed to being. And then I can re-up my commitment anytime and every time that I notice that. It's not dependent on some outcome that's out there. So I thought, well, this is interesting. So I started practicing that, implementing it. And it was working. I was finding much more success in my rate of going to the gym and working out. It wasn't always going to the gym. Sometimes it was like, oh, I haven't done it. I want to go for a 40-minute walk this evening because I haven't, it's towards the end of the week. I've only gotten 4 in, whatever. And I'm disciplined. I'm committed to myself for this thing. And I started to see real results towards what I wanted. And so I started applying that principle in different areas, in my work, in my marriage, in my fatherhood, in the way that I wanted to be involved in my community. And what I started to notice is that I could live now. I could be right now. Whatever it is that I want to be. Like, that's what matters. And I know that this can start to sound a little guru-y, and I don't want it to be. But I found such satisfaction and fulfillment in now. It's not about this thing that I'm going after. But now I'm keeping my commitments to myself and I'm being disciplined. And that's the most fulfilled I've ever felt.
This is fascinating. So I can relate largely to the sorts of things that you're talking about, especially the not getting out of bed and going to the gym bit. I'm definitely on board with that bit. It's a very, very in-depth piece of psychology that you're playing with here, because this is mindfulness rolled into not allowing yourself to be distracted from the things that you set as priorities.
That's right.
And so whilst, and I know the examples you gave are straightforward examples, but if you were to take that back into a business environment, how would you see that? How have you seen that applied by your clients? How have they taken to this, and how perhaps you can give us some examples of how it works for them?
Absolutely, it's a really great question. In particular, I have a client who she wouldn't consider herself an alcoholic, right? But definitely alcohol has affected her ability to grow her business the way that she wanted, meaning she would have one glass of wine with dinner, and that, before she knew it, that turned into 4 or 5 glasses on a Wednesday night. She's got an early morning to get some things together, get her team together, all of that sort of stuff. And she's coming to it foggy, tired, all of that sort of stuff, definitely affecting her ability to create what it is she says she's about. And she has set goals. She has counted days. She's tried everything in order to not have this affect the way that she's showing up in her business. And as soon as she internalized the idea, I am the person, I am the woman who does this, it worked for her. It was now the present moment for her, and it was who she was, and it was her commitment to herself. And she got super committed to herself in each moment, and she's been very successful. She doesn't know how many days she's gone without a drink, but it doesn't matter, because today, this is her commitment to herself. It's been amazing. I have another client who has really struggled to implement what it takes in order to keep and this is going to be, I don't typically engage in some of the very popular sales jargon, but I'll use some of it because it works with a lot of people to understand what I'm talking about, to build a full pipeline of potential clients, potential customers. He's really struggled in order to do that. And we broke it down. Okay, what actually builds a pipeline? What actually gets people going through the process that's going to lead them to buying your service? We broke that down. Okay, it's going to need this. They're going to need this many touch points. It's best if we get them on the email address or on the email list. I know cold emailing and calling works, but I haven't been willing to do that. Okay, great. We've got it. We identified 2 disciplines. One was cold calling. One was inviting people in different ways to be on their email list. Those disciplines, right? So the discipline is sit down for an hour and a half, cold call, cold email, whatever is working for you, whatever process you've put into place. Now, if you are the guy who does an hour and a half of cold contacting every single day, 5 days a week, you'll see results. Inevitably. It's that's the way the world works. You're going to see a result. And you're going to fine tune that, and you're going to learn things about yourself and your service and the questions that people ask and what's working and what's not working. And we didn't focus on the sales goal. Sure, does he have an idea of what he wants to do in revenue and new revenue and new client? Of course he does. But we put that aside and focus hour and a half every single day, 5 days a week. Made all the difference in the world. Started to see the pipeline that he couldn't even handle. So there's so many different applications in there, but it's really the essence of it. It's so incredibly simple, is that you must get specific about the disciplined action it takes to get the thing that you say you want and get committed to that. Become the person who does it, become the person that engages in that, not, how do you say, like this thing that's outside of you that you just do to get the goal.
Yeah. I'm connecting the discipline piece now with the fundamental focus on the action as opposed to the outcome. And
That's
I'm
right.
really understanding that, and I think it's absolutely fascinating. Do you find that over time, what they're focused on, or what becomes important to them, changes?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, in some areas, right? So back to my simple example of fitness, that's never going to change. And that's why I added to the mantra for the rest of my life. Because I want to be active. I want to be healthy. I want to be able to, go on adventures with my kids. And if I ever have grandkids, I want to be able to do that with them as well. So that's a lifelong thing. It's never going to change unless we have, discover some technology that allows us to be physically fit without that. But anyway, so of course, and it's a constant evaluation and a constant conversation. And that's what I invite my clients to do. That's what I work to practice for myself, is to be in the conversation constantly, always looking at the feedback that's available and adjusting. So you can't, not that you can't, let me clean up my language. It's ineffective to put blinders on and say, it's this thing and only this thing. Now, that can be effective for a little while, because sometimes these disciplines take a little while to create some results. No problem. Decide that. I'm going to do this for 3-4 months. That's how long it should take in order to create some results around it. And if the results aren't what I want them to be, then I'll adjust my disciplines. So it's this opportunity of the world, the universe, whatever you want to call it, the people around you, your company, your spouse, your kids, they're constantly offering you feedback about how you're doing in the thing that you say you want to do, or the person you say you want to be. So if you're paying attention, the discipline will adjust.
Really, really fascinating. When they're in their business, and I understand this can work socially and domestically as well as in professionally. But just sticking with the professional piece for a second, when they're working with their teams, do they change the way they manage them? Do they change the dialogue or the metrics that they measure them by?
Absolutely. It's such a good question. One of the disciplines that is rarely practiced when I start working with a client, that I'm constantly inviting my clients to practice. And notice I use the word practice a lot. I believe everything that we're doing here, this is all just practice.
Yeah, I definitely haven't got it all right yet, Chad. Definitely. I'm still practicing.
Yes, practicing, not mastering. We're not mastering anything. We're practicing. Because like you already pointed out, the game changes. And we can practice, if we practice one, or if we decide to do one thing or master one thing, and then we play a new team, it's going to be ineffective. It might, what was effective with one team might be very ineffective with another. So we need ongoing practice in order to do this. So one of the practices that I am constantly inviting my clients into is real-time feedback. So there's this idea that, you know, when we're working with our team, we do, let's say we do monthly one-to-ones. And a lot of leaders buy into the idea that, well, if I've got these monthly one-to-ones set up, or these 360s, or these quarterlies, or quarterly reviews, or whatever, that I'm gonna, when I notice things, I'm gonna store that away for that moment when I have a one-to-one with this person. And then I'm just going to unload everything that I've been noticing along the way on this person. Whether you label it good, bad, positive, negative, that's a very common mentality. And I offer them the opportunity, the discipline of real-time feedback. When you notice it, it's like that saying that's posted. I don't know if this is the same in UK, but in US, on the train stations and the airports, there's this saying, see something, say something.
We've got it. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's the same
It
thing.
can be very wearing after a while, but yeah, we have got
it. It's the same thing that I encourage my clients in their leadership roles and with their people. See something, say something, as close to what you see as possible, meaning real-time feedback, even if it's difficult to give in the moment. And this practice, this discipline, allows them to move at a much quicker pace. Because if you're storing up your feedback for the right moment, or the formal conversation, or whatever, all of what's not working, and even what is working, can get in the way of moving faster. And so all of that time that you're withholding and waiting to give the feedback is slower time, slower production, slower relationships, less creativity, all of that sort of stuff. So this discipline of I am a leader who gives real-time feedback. When I see something, I say something.
This is interesting. Have you found that once they've adopted this I am discipline, this I am commitment, when they're working with their other members of the team, do they let them in on the secret? Do they share that methodology with them? And if so, does it work?
Some explicitly, and some by leadership, by example. Certainly I get the opportunity, when this starts to work for a lot of my clients, they'll bring me in to help bring it to the team, which is a really fun experience. It's the part of my work that I actually love the most, because I know it's where we can make the biggest difference when everybody's in on the conversation. At least the, middle management up to C-level, when they're in on the conversation, man, we can really create magic. I talk about culture in terms of viscosity. So when we have a low feedback culture, it's like trying to swim in peanut butter. But when we have a high feedback culture, meaning real-time feedback, being willing to say what's there, it's like swimming in water. It's a good visual to think about. Like, you could, I bet most people haven't swam in peanut butter, but you could imagine the difficulty of what it would be. Yeah. And go ahead.
So this shift, there are two things occur to me as I'm considering what you're sharing.
Yeah.
The first thing is, if the organization embraces this, the leaders and all of the executive team embrace this, then the sky's the limit. You don't need to set a goal.
Sure.
You just keep doing what you need to be doing. And as you said earlier, the results will just follow on. So actually saying we're going to double sales in the next financial year, or we're going to have this much market share, is a fallacy. It's valueless in the context of what we just said. The second thing is that if other people in the team don't share this level of discipline, or aren't committed to this level of discipline, presumably they deselect, they self-deselect. It's a place, it's a culture, it's a an environment they're not going to be comfortable in over time.
That's exactly right. It's very exposing.
Yeah.
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 Which I see as a benefit towards what most of us want in our culture. We want people self-selecting into discipline if we want to do something meaningful together. And currently,
Yeah.
goals can be a really good hiding place.
Well, there's an interesting thought. You're going to have to explain that one.
Well, I would just say, oftentimes goals set become a low bar.
Yeah.
And that's a perfect place to hide, right? If I'm disciplined in my work and what I know it's going to take in order to move in the direction we want to move, I don't even know how good it could get.
No, I agree.
And sometimes it's what is it? Is it Murphy's Law that says the action will take the time set apart for it?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's the same thing. When we set that goal, we're saying this is our ceiling, really. This is where we're willing to go to. And if I look at that, if that goal is set for me, or I set it strategically, like I say strategically, people probably can't see me doing my quotes, but like some people know that they can operate at 80%, especially really effective people. They know they can operate at 80%, and people will think it's their 100. And so they'll set those goals there. And I'm just saying, why not? The aims are great. The direction is fantastic, but why not keep it open to, we really don't even know how good this thing could get. And if we engage in these disciplines, we know we'll be running in the right direction.
Right. The threat would be that people will say, by definition, you'll accept mediocrity because you're not setting goals. Any outcome will do.
Sure.
Do you see any of that happening?
No, because what happens is the discipline is clear. The action, the rigor is so specific and exact that you can't hide from it, like you talked about. So if I have somebody on my team, for example, and we have decided on the aim and the direction that we're headed, what's worth working for or towards. And then we break that down. And that's the value, by the way, for the aim, or some people call it a goal, is that the value of it is that it allows you to break it down into disciplines. So we break that down into disciplines. And now it's very visible whether or not those disciplines are being engaged in or not. And so there's nowhere to hide. We can have a conversation. Well, it's interesting. We committed to this, you committed to this, and it's not happening. What's going on? Are you okay?
Got that. Can I just ask another challenge that might occur?
Of course, please.
One of the advantages of diversity in an organization, different ways of thinking, different ways of doing, is that you create new ideas and you create wider appeal to a different kind of audience. Is there a danger through this process that you don't become diverse, you actually become very narrow-minded, you become very super focused, and therefore almost blink it in a slightly different way?
Maybe. I don't see how this self-selects for a non-diverse culture. Those don't, for some reason, I can't think of a scenario why this would encourage non-diverse thinking. Because what I'm not saying, and maybe I'm making some assumptions about your question, so let's just explore those. And I could be off. I assume by your question, there may be a level of like one person is dictating the discipline or action
that's kind of where I'm going from.
Yeah, got it.
This is the answer. We need to all do this, and why do we all do this? We get the answer.
Yeah, definitely not what I'm talking about. So I really appreciate it. It's a great point of clarity for me, especially. So on our team, I'll just talk about our team in general, and then I can talk about clients as well. But on our team, in order to join our team, meaning the team that at TNG, our firm, there must be a unique contribution that you bring. And I believe everybody has that, but not everybody has figured out, and not everybody has committed to their unique contribution. And so when I come to the team and we're approaching a project and I'm going to be a part of that project, I'm the one who sets my disciplines in order to when I have clarity for the aim, I'm the one that sets those disciplines for myself, and I declare them to the team and I get committed to them. That way I can be accountable to the team, but it's still my diverse, unique angle on the solution of the problem or my contribution to the solution.
Just widening the conversation a little bit, Chad, so our audience get a sense of place and presence. Who are your typical clients, and where are they?
So I answer this question in two different ways. There's like the demographic, right? The very typical ideal client profile. For me, the way that we typically define those is it's a company founder who has had their company for 5+ years. They have a team of 8 to I think the client, the biggest team with my clients, I think currently is about 80 employees. So that's kind of the sweet spot. Yeah. I really love working with founders that can affect change quickly, and that they still have an intimate relationship with the people that work with them, so that influence when they're in the conversation with me, that influence when they go back out there is still strong. They're typically doing anywhere from 2 to 30 million a year. So that's kind of like the ICP. That's the typical answer. The answer that I'm much more interested in and that I love talking about more is the founders or the leaders who, one, are radically open, meaning they're willing to hear everything, all feedback, even and especially what they don't want to hear. And second, those who are radically transparent. The ones who are willing to say what is true for them, what is real for them, what's happening for them, what their perspective is, even and especially when it's difficult to say. And when I have a prospect of a client, those are the two main filters that I'm filling out with in the first couple calls that we do together to see if this is a good fit or not. I'm gauging how open are they, how transparent are they. I don't care the challenge that they're up against. We can deal with that. We can deal with certainly any challenge as long as those are present.
See, in my own experience and in our practice, it's very important that the client is going to be prepared to make themselves vulnerable, because if they don't open themselves up, then change becomes very, very limited. And you talk about transparency. I think if clients aren't honest with you, if they aren't honest with themselves, then a lot of our work, if it does anything at all, is built on saying. And so I can absolutely correlate with the way you described it. I really like clients who are hungry for change. I really like clients who are aware of their frailties and want to do something. And almost to some extent, people who are almost don't take themselves too seriously.
That's right.
You know, they realize we're all imperfect human beings, and we've all got stuff we can work on.
That's Chad,
right. Been really great chatting with you. I've learned a lot in this conversation, and I really appreciate you taking the time to join us. If our audience want to reach you, where can they find you?
The best place, I really, we have a podcast called Naked Leadership. Really love what we're up to over there. I host it with our two founders, Dan and Adrian. I mentioned Adrian earlier. He was the coach who really saved my life, or helped me save my life. Probably a better way to do it. And we have a lot of fun over there. We do live coaching, or we do recorded coaching calls, so you can hear what it's actually like to be in the coaching experience with real people facing real challenges, unfiltered. Some of them are anonymous, some of them aren't, depending on the challenge and the preciousness of the information that they're giving to the public. So that's really fun. We have an episode that I typically point to people to start with, which is episode 145. It's called How We Do Confrontation. And in this conversation, I do all the production and planning for the podcast, and then they show up and we engage in the conversation. I gave them a topic of what we were going to talk about. And then when we got on, I said, I pulled a quick one on them and said, hey, look, actually, there's something, I have a grievance with you too. There's something that's bothering me about our working relationship. I would really like to demonstrate how we work on a conflicted conversation live here on the podcast, record it. And so we did, and they were gracious. They were so good to me. And you can hear the awkwardness. You can hear the fears, you can hear the surprise. It's a really fascinating look. And the reason I did that is because this is a model that we teach our clients on how to engage in conflict or confrontation. And I wanted to model it. I also wanted to show where we make mistakes and mess up, but we can recover as long as we're connected to each other. And so that's the fun one. I always point people to that. Naked Leadership, episode 145. And beyond that, you can find me. I'm on LinkedIn. Our website's takenewground.com. I would love to hear from you.
Chad Brown, it's been an absolute joy. Thank you very much for your time. And on with your day in Utah.
Graham, thank you so much.
Bye. So there you have it. That was the latest edition of the Coaching Conversation. Hope it was useful. Hope it did what it was meant to do for you. If you want any more information about our coaching practice, it's at the executivemindset.co.uk. While you're there, you can book your own free session, which will give you a much deeper insight to what coaching can really do for you. If you enjoyed the session, please give us a good rating. And if you want to reach out for further information, do email me at theexecutivemindset@sagegreen.com. That's about it for this time, and look forward to seeing you next time. Bye.